Village of Lordstown is saying no thanks to any more artificial intelligence data centers. Village Council voted to place a ban on AI data centers being built, but why? And how does a data center impact its surrounding community? Our go-to AI expert, Grove City Professor of Computer Science, Brian Dillinger, is back with me to talk all things AI. So Brian, this data center in Lordstown was set to provide 120 jobs for the community. Can you explain how the data centers work and if 120 jobs is typical for an operation of this size?
Yes, there's really a lot of variability in that question. So a data center is just a building, think a warehouse that's filled to the brim with servers, right? With large computers that can, typically today they're being used to host AI calculations, to do the work that happens on the back end when you talk to ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or one of the others. Now, these can be built at lots of different scales. And of course, the bigger the center, the more jobs associated both with constructing it and with staffing it afterwards. But there's a lot of variability in that. We're seeing more and more move towards really, really large centers to centralize all the operations in one place.
I know residents, members of council mentioned water usage, also electric, and folks were worried about their bills going up. A lot of folks are, dealing with higher expenses at this time. How much water and power is used to power up AI?
Yeah, so that's a complicated question. Best estimates for 2024 are that AI data centers around the country used something like 4% of the total electricity consumption of the US. Now, we expect that number to go up year over year as time goes by. The water is primarily used as part of a cooling system. So you figure you run that many computers, you've got to keep them all cold so that they don't burn out. And so there's water involved then in running through, drawing off that waste heat so that the center can stay cool and continue running. The water usage on the center itself is relatively lower. We think maybe 1% of the total water usage of the US last year went to cooling data centers. Now, that's still an enormous amount. It's something like 17 billion gallons, but it's lesser than the power usage. A lot of the concern, though, is not the usages as a percentage of the whole country, but that they will be localized in particular areas. So, for instance, in Northern Virginia, 26% of the electricity that Virginia makes is going to data centers at this point. And so if you're in a community where most of your power, much of your local water is going to these purposes, that's a big draw on you.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, they are obviously picking places with colder climates. You and I were talking about where in the country these data centers are looking to build. Explain why they're picking certain areas and what they're looking for.
Yeah, so there are a couple of factors that would be good. Cooler weather does mean less work has to be done to air condition it, just like it does in your house, except with a much larger cooling bill, right? But you also want a place that's going to have ready availability both of water at a low price to cool it off, and especially low prices for electricity. And so one of the reasons Northern Virginia has seen so much action is that DC has regulations around power supply that make the electricity there very plentiful and very inexpensive. Obviously, as usage goes up, that may change. But so that's sort of the concern of some of these small towns, is that if you have an oversupply of electricity locally, then your electric prices have been very low, and now a data center moves in, maybe that stops being true.
Yeah, AI is on the rise. I think a lot of folks are watching how this sector grows. And like you said, right now it's a small percentage, but when you go to those local communities, folks are having concerns. There's, other parts of the country, just like you mentioned, Virginia and Pennsylvania, Ohio now too. So, Brian, thank you so much for joining us and explaining, how this works and why people have the worries that they have about them. Thank you.
My pleasure, Lindsay.